You got purple belts going out there beating black belts, getting crazy.
Every 2 years, the best submission grapplers in the world gather in one place to answer one question. Who is the best? In September of 2019, that place was Anaheim, California.
I'm just solidifying myself as the greatest noogie grappler of all time.
What happened inside that building over 2 days was not what anyone could have predicted. Not the experts, not the competitors, and not the people who had been following the sport for decades. But the significance of some moments can only be understood years later, when you look back and realize that everything after them was different than what came before. That is exactly what ADCC 2019 was. The first step towards the next era of grappling. The Abu Dhabi Combat Club World Championship has been running since 1998. Sheikh Tahnoun bin Zayed Al Nahyan of the UAE royal family developed a deep interest in Brazilian jiu-jitsu while studying in San Diego. So much so that when he went back home, he took the art with him and eventually created a tournament to crown a world champion in grappling. Not just Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He welcomed anyone who practiced any sort of grappling. To make things fair for everyone, there would be no points for the first half of the match to allow the athletes to open up with no tactical consequences. If you wanted to win in the first half, you had to submit your opponent. The rules were mixed to make it possible for each style to find a way to win, but even the Sheikh himself did not know the prestige ADCC would gain within the grappling community. There are 5 men's weight classes and 2 women's divisions. There is also an open weight division for men, known as the Absolute, where anyone from any weight class can enter, no matter the size. And of course, the Superfight, where the defending Absolute champion from the previous event faces the Superfight champion, easily the highest profile match of the weekend. It quickly became widely regarded as the Olympics of grappling, partially due to it running every 2 years, but also because winning an ADCC medal was the mountaintop for every competitive grappler. But getting there was not easy. Only the most notable and successful athletes receive an invite to the ADCC event. The rest have to compete in the grueling process that is the ADCC trials, local ADCC events set up to find the best of the best in each weight category. These brackets are always full to the brim with the best hungry up-and-comers of each region. The trials are notoriously difficult to do. In one weekend, you'd have to compete in and win at least 5 or 6 matches straight, with brackets regularly filling up to 200 plus athletes for just one weight category. Winning the trials is a very high achievement in and of itself that 99% of competitors never achieve, and that is just the entry point to the World Championship. The prize money at the time was $10,000 for winning a weight class, $40,000 for the absolute winner. Small numbers by combat sports standards, but for grappling, it was quite large. What athletes were gunning for was the medal, not the monetary prize. The medal, to many, is priceless. After 2001, the ADCC began hosting their prestigious event around the world in different countries with different venues, but it never lost its world-class grapplers, no matter where they landed. What the ADCC meant to grapplers and what it appeared as to the rest of the world were 2 very different things. Previous editions of the World Championship had been held in venues that did not match the caliber of the athletes, nor the importance of their matches. The 2017 edition was in Espoo, a suburb of Helsinki, Finland, within a modest indoor sports venue where the fairly small crowd was enthusiastic about the elite matches, but the production was fairly basic. Flow Grappling had been the broadcast partner for ADCC since 2017. They stream every match live, from the World Championship to the trials. They also create content online like interviews with athletes, blog posts, rankings, and podcasts, which helped build a dedicated online audience, beginning the work of making the sport's most important event visible beyond just the most hardcore fans. They brought structure and consistency to the broadcast and online presence, but the physical event still needed a lot of work. Jassim had been attending ADCC events since the year 2000, first as a spectator. A wealthy California-raised fight fan who had fallen in love with grappling, he worked his way up from handing out wristbands to planning brackets over nearly 2 decades. In 2019, he was given the head organizer role for the very first time, and his goal was explicit. He wanted to transform what had looked like a high school wrestling match into something that matched the caliber of the athletes on the mat, to give the event and the athletes the stage they deserved. So he booked the Anaheim Convention Center, a huge venue and a significant step up from anything the ADCC had used in North America. He brought in Seth Daniels, yes, that one, if you know you know, from Fight to Win to help with operations. He deepened the partnership with Flow Grappling. He invested in lighting, walkouts, pyrotechnics, live drummers. These elements gave the grandiose feeling that the Olympics of grappling should have. The event was prestigious and world-class from its very inception, but for the first time, it made noise to the outside world as well. It was something that you could watch with a friend. It looked like a real world-class event. With the largest live audience to date, the 2019 ADCC would shatter all expectations and begin the modern era of grappling. This part of the video is brought to you by the BJJ Notes app. Joseph Chen said not long ago that if you aren't tracking your progress, you can't know if you're improving. BJJ Notes is built just for that. Log all of your sessions, track techniques, and rolls. Note what worked and what didn't. The more you use it, the clearer you see your strengths and, more importantly, your weaknesses. I've been using this app since 2024 and over 20,000 grapplers are already on there. It's free to start. There is a pro version for serious practitioners, and right now the annual plan is available at a promotional price for a limited time. Links are in the description. Download it free, check out the annual plan while the promo is still running, and use code CHRIS so they know that you came from here. September 28th, 2019. The lights that Jassim had spent months getting right went up for the first time. The crowd that had been filling up since morning finally settled, and across multiple mats, simultaneously, the biggest ADCC to date began. The first thing you need to understand about the 66 kg division at ADCC 2019 is that it should have looked completely different. Rubens Charles, known as Cobrinha, was the reigning 66 kg champion, so of course he had received his automatic invitation as the defending champion, but he also wanted his son, Kennedy Maciel, in the bracket with him. However, ADCC said no. They refused to invite Kennedy while his father is still actively competing in the same division. Cobrinha's response showed the kind of man he is. He gave up his spot right away. The defending champion withdrew from the event that he had won 2 years earlier just so that his son could compete in his place. 3 replacement invitations went out shortly after, Kennedy Maciel being one of them. Kennedy walked into the Anaheim Convention Center wearing a rash guard that said Cobrinha Jr. on the back. His father had given up everything to make sure that his son would have his chance at making history. He wouldn't compete, but he was there to corner and support his son. This was an incredible opportunity for Kennedy, but it also put a lot of pressure on him to perform. In his first match of the day, Juan Alvarenga took Kennedy's back and held it long enough to score 3 points. He took the lead. Cobrinha's son, in his first match at his first ADCC, was on the verge of losing, but Kennedy worked his way out, and during a sweep he found an opportunity to shoot a triangle. He managed to tighten the choke and Alvarenga could not escape. 8 minutes and 54 seconds, he was down 3 points and he found the submission. On the other side of the bracket was another young and hungry teenager eager to prove himself. The 16-year-old Tairo Tolo, who was just a blue belt at the time, faced a seasoned black belt in Bruno Frazato, a man who had earned his black belt before Tai could even walk. But the ferocious teen managed to channel his endless energy and take the veteran down and score 2 points for the victory. Paulo Miao is a legend in the Brazilian jiu-jitsu community, respected by many. He is a technician who competed at the highest levels of grappling for a very long time. In his first match, he faced a young Kenta Iwamoto, who we now recognize as the dog he is and Joseph Chen's best friend, but at the time he was unknown. He was just another winner of the Australasia trials. Kenta's strong side were leg locks. However, he got an unfortunate opponent, since Paulo Miao is notorious for not tapping to any joint locks, no matter how damaging. He just wanted to win so badly that he allowed his body to break. Right away, Kenta attacked with a very powerful Kayotera ankle lock, but Paulo's expression didn't even change. No matter what leg lock Kenta tried, he was faced with no reaction, and the veteran managed to win 5-0. Nicky Ryan was 18 years old and competing in the same tournament as his older brother and team, the Danaher Death Squad. He won his opening match against Jamil Hill Taylor 2-0. Despite being one of the youngsters in the division, he showcased everything he learned with Danaher in the blue basement. In the quarterfinals, he faced Paulo Miao, and this is where the experience gap really showed. Miao pulled guard and picked up a negative point for doing so, but then managed to score a sweep in the points period to get 2 points. He then defended everything Nicky threw at him for the remainder of the match, using his veteran experience to fully understand the situation and weather the storm of a ravenous 18-year-old prodigy who knows he is losing the match. Although Nicky got close to scoring a few times, he did not manage to secure any points, and Miao won 2-0. If you'd like to know more about Nicky Ryan's interesting life, I've got just the video for you. The story of the 66kg division in 2019 was all the young guns that were starting to emerge, but not yet experienced enough to defeat the veterans. Some did not manage to get out of the first round, others did. However, among the fresh faces, there was a highly respected and established veteran of the division, Augusto Tanquinho Mendes. The question on everyone's mind for the 66kg division was, is this a passing of the torch moment where the young stars finally emerge and shine, or will experience prevail? If you're enjoying this documentary so far, please like and subscribe, it really goes a long way. Thank you. It is well known that the 77kg division of ADCC is always the hardest one to win, having the best technicians who are also extremely athletic and physically gifted. This 77kg division was no different. It was labeled the Group of Death because it was stacked to the brim with talent, but one man was at the center of it all. The defending 77kg ADCC champion, JT Torres. He is one of the most technically complete grapplers in the bracket and the man everyone else is gunning for if they wanted to leave Anaheim with gold in the hardest ADCC division. Torres opened against Ross Nichols, one of my personal favorites and one of UK's top black belts. They had a technical and careful match. Torres, using his veteran passing game to systematically neutralize Nichols' gorgeous guard work over 15 minutes. Ross had a beautiful entry into an inverted armbar that looked real tight, but Torres grit out an escape, showing his experience. Torres won and moved further up the bracket. Gary Tonin is your favorite grappler's favorite grappler, who had spent the previous 2 years focused on MMA, going 5-0 as a professional fighter in 2019. This was his 4th ADCC appearance, and the question surrounding him was whether the 2 years away from serious grappling competition would affect him. His opening match against Mateusz Gamrot, a UFC fighter, answered that question very quickly. He took Gamrot's back and submitted the UFC fighter using a rear naked choke. In reality, what people didn't know, but any member of the DDS could tell you, is that Gary didn't replace his grappling training with MMA. He just added MMA training on top of what he was already doing. He is widely regarded within the Danaher Death Squad as the hardest worker in the room, and it showed. He also won the Crisscross Jiu-Jitsu Best Wardrobe Award for his USA Uncle Gary Wants You. Besides those 2 MMA fighters, there was another, Renato Canuto. Much like Gary, he was both a pro fighter and a pro grappler. Canuto beat Oliver Taza, a member of the DDS, in a competitive match in his opening round. And when the fans saw his quarterfinal opponent, they immediately knew that it would be a match for the ages. Renato Canuto versus Gary Tonin. 2 aggressive attackers, 2 takedown masters, 2 flashy move lovers. Their match made 15 minutes go by in the blink of an eye. Their scrambles were like a wild tornado. Neither man let up for 15 minutes. It was constant movement and constant shooting. The 10-minute regulation passed and they went to the 5-minute overtime, where finally they began to look human and started to kind of slow down. Gary weaponized his stamina and continued shooting non-stop, forcing Renato to defend and eventually receive a negative point for backing up too much. The crowd at the Anaheim Convention Center were on their feet, eyes glued to mat 3 and screaming out of excitement. The match was exactly what people expected and much more. Seriously, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. In my humble opinion, it was the most exciting match of the 2019 ADCC, and this was just the quarterfinals. Dante Leon was 23 years old and not yet the name he would become. In his opening match, he managed to defeat John Zatava, a very tough Marcelo Garcia black belt, on points, but his second match of the day would be a real challenge. A 9-time IBJJF World Champion, 5-time consecutive lightweight world champion from 2014 to 2018, an IBJJF Hall of Famer, and one of the most decorated competitors in the history of the sport lightweight division, Lucas Lepri, who also took silver at the 2015 and 17 ADCC World Championships. Lucas beat Lachlan Giles in his opening match and wasn't the kind of athlete who loses in the quarterfinals. However, in the Anaheim Convention Center, Dante took his back with 3 minutes remaining and worked for a rear naked choke. Although he didn't get it, he beat the decorated legend. This was one of the bigger upsets at the 2019 ADCC and forced the crowd to pay attention to a name that they had not necessarily come to see. We all know and love Wagner Hosha as the rough but lovable veteran he is, a scrapper and a fighter. In 2019, he was no different. He had been competing at the highest levels of the sport for years and was a UFC veteran, an ADCC bronze medalist in 2017, and one of the most physically relentless competitors in the 77 kilogram bracket. He submitted Servio Tullio by armbar in his opening match and then met Celso Vinicius in the quarterfinals, and that match was something else entirely. A war, not necessarily exciting in the way Canuto versus Tonin was, but impossible to look away from for entirely different reasons. The match was 15 minutes with overtime, but the total runtime ended up being closer to 20 because of how many times it had to be stopped. Both men were bleeding. Celso got his hand bandaged. The physicality of it was almost confrontational, although for Wagner, that's nothing new. He smiled through it all. You can tell that it was getting to Celso. It made every collar tie closer to a strike than an actual collar tie. It was the kind of match where you find yourself wondering how either person walked out of the building afterward. Wagner won on a penalty. This really seemed like the group of death. The 88 kilogram division was interesting. None of the previous ADCC 88 medalists came back for this division. The first place winner was Gordon Ryan. He moved up to the minus 99 kilogram division. The silver medalist was Keenan Cornelius, who had his viral eye infection at the time, the same eye infection that he speaks with fear about to this very day.
Anytime I've had staph, I've never considered stopping training, but when I had EKC, I was like, if I get this again, I'm getting a new hobby. You know, that was that bad.
Yeah, the only thing that even brought me back to the mats was that apparently when you get it once, it's like you don't get it again.
The third place was taken by Shanji Ribeiro, who needed wrist surgery and could not compete. So by default, the number 1 seed in the 2019 ADCC 88 kilogram division was Greg Jones, who placed 4th in 2017. 2017 was Greg Jones's coming out party. He cemented his name by beating 2 legendary names in grappling, and once he joined the Danaher Death Squad, people quickly realized that Greg had a very high chance of cleaning out the whole division. He won his opening match with his specialty, an inside heel hook, but this wasn't the only thing he had in his arsenal. He showed a drastically improved passing game, studying under John Danaher at the Henzo Gracie Academy in New York. The whole Danaher Death Squad team was mad-side for every match that featured their teammates, and they were anything but quiet. Nick Rodriguez was the loudest and most energetic in the corner. In his second match, Craig Craig faced Mason Fowler, a top-ranked grappler. With 30 seconds left in the match, looking to score right at the end, Mason shot, trying to take the number 1 seed down and snatch a victory. But Craig immediately locked up one of the DDS's favorite moves, the guillotine, and got the tap. Mason risked it all for a quick win before the overtime. Unfortunately, he came up short. Craig Jones was riding high on 2 submission wins going into day 2, clearly the favorite to win the entire division. Mateus Diniz is the other highly notable name in the 88 division, a man who did not do the trials. He was invited. Despite 2019 being his ADCC debut, he was a Marcelo Garcia black belt with IBJJF World No-Gi titles already on his record and a lot of hype coming into Anaheim. One victory in his resume that should not go overlooked is Craig Jones himself. As Diniz also won both of his matches on day 1, that victory may come into play again. In the minus 99 kilogram division, Gordon Ryan was aiming to not only get a gold medal, but to completely dominate his opponents, and he planned to do it again the next day in the absolute as well. Gordon, much like his teammate Craig Jones, had 2017 as his explosive introduction to the ADCC World, winning gold in his first year at ADCC, but falling short of the gold in the absolute, where Felipe Pena beat him in the absolute final. This sat with Gordon, and it was a feeling that he never wanted to experience again. He knew who he was and what he was capable of, so in 2019 he was laser focused on his mission. His first match of the day was against Ben Hodgkinson, the Australasia Trials winner, who as the lowest seed had the misfortune of drawing an ADCC champion in his opening round. Gordon submitted him by a rear naked choke within 2 minutes, barely shifting into second gear. But if he wanted to accomplish his goal for this ADCC, he would need to conserve his energy, which he accomplished in his second match versus Tim Spriggs as well. He spent 6 minutes on Spriggs' back and then choked him. 2 rear naked chokes on day 1 and almost no energy spent. Big Gord was also in attendance, there to watch his sons Nicky and Gordon Ryan compete. He was matside for all of their matches. Gordon's hand was heavily bandaged in all of his matches. That wasn't from training, but from carrying a motorized bike where his hand got caught between the wheel and the fender in the weeks before the tournament. X-rays after the event would confirm what most people watching suspected. His hand was broken. He competed with it anyway. And he had also been dealing with a bacterial condition in his gut that had been causing him serious health problems for months. He was definitely not at full health, but there was no way he would miss the biggest grappling event with his team and his father in attendance. The plus 99 kilogram division was beyond stacked, with 4 returning ADCC champions, alongside a few newcomers who were hoping to spoil the veterans party. Kaynan Duarte, a 21-year-old rising star, Nick Rodriguez, at the time just a blue belt with 8 months of BJJ experience, who qualified for the biggest tournament in the world. If you'd like to know more about Nicky Rod specifically, you can watch my previous documentary. Buchecha met Victor Hugo in the second round and dominated him from start to finish. Hugo lost his ADCC debut that day, but it was far from the end of his story. He would go on to become one of the most dominant heavyweights the sport had ever seen. His day in Anaheim was just the beginning of an outstanding career. Possibly the most controversial moment of day 1 came in the match between Yuri Samos and Kaynan Duarte. They went out of bounds during a scramble, Kaynan still attacking and taking the back, even after leaving the mat. Somewhere in that exchange, Yuri injured his knee. They restarted in the middle with Kaynan already on Yuri's back, and Yuri's corner immediately protested, saying that they should go back to neutral. Yuri tried to stand with Kaynan on his back, but his hurt knee gave in and buckled underneath him. The crowd had been booing since the restart, but Kaynan won, and Yuri's tournament was over before it really began. Nicky Rodriguez also notably beat 2 veteran black belts in Muhammad Ali and Orlando Sanchez. The blue belt was on fire. If you like these kinds of BJJ videos, please consider liking, subscribing, and supporting me on Patreon. Thank you! The women's minus 60 kilogram division was just as stacked with world-class talent, but the fans did not predict any upset happening. They felt like the trials winners would be destroyed in round 1 and let the real players of the division dance in the final, namely Bianca Basilio and Beatriz Mesquita. Bia Mesquita was the defending minus 60 kilogram champion and one of the greatest female grapplers alive, a 10-time IBJJF World Champion, the 2017 2017 ADCC gold medalist, someone who had submitted every opponent on her way to the title. She submitted her first opponent within 2 minutes. Fionn Davies is a Welsh black belt under Darragh O'Connell. Pia Mesquita beat her in the previous ADCC. She won her opening day 1 match 12-0. The Pia Mesquita rematch was coming in day 2. Bianca Basilio was 23 years old and had been winning world titles since she was 15, claiming IBJJF gold at every belt level on her way up. She was one of the most accomplished young competitors in the women's division and a silver medalist in 2017, where Mesquita submitted her for the title. She came to Anaheim looking for revenge. She submitted Livia Giles, Lachlan's wife, in 2 minutes and 17 seconds. The female plus 60 kg division carried a similar narrative. There were 2 expected favorites to meet in the final, Gabby Garcia and Tyann Porfirio. Gabby Garcia was going for her 4th ADCC title in the plus 60 kg division. She won her day 1 match and moved toward the final to cement her name in the record books. Her biggest challenger on paper was Tyann Porfirio, regarded as the only woman in the bracket who could realistically push Garcia. Tyann won her opening match and advanced further. It seemed people's predictions for the plus 60 kg final were getting closer to finalizing. Day 1 ended and the arena began to empty. Across 5 men's divisions and 2 women's divisions, hundreds of matches had been fought. Only the best of the best stayed for day 2. The favorites had largely held their ground. Gordon Ryan was untouched. Craig Jones was still the favorite for 88. JT Torres remained in the group of death, but the stories that would define day 2 were already set. Kennedy Maciel and Tairu Tolo were on a collision course. Fionn Davies was about to meet the woman who submitted her 2 years ago, and Gabby Garcia was 1 win away from history. Day 1 was electric. Day 2 would be something else entirely. Day 2 is Sunday, the day that decides the medalists, the absolute, and the Superfight champion. Just 1 day to answer so many questions. In the semi-final, Augusto Tanquinho Mendes got past Paulo Miao in overtime to reach the final. Tanquinho was 37 years old and had been competing at the highest level of the sport for over a decade. He had been to ADCC before and had gotten very close, but he never won. The 66 kg title was the one thing missing from a career that had almost everything else, and today he was just 1 match away. On the other side, Kennedy Maciel versus Tairu Tolo in the 66 kg semi-final, Cobrinha's son against the 16-year-old. The match was physical and close throughout, neither man giving the other anything easily. In overtime, Kennedy took Ty's back, got the arm across the throat, and choked him out at the 14-minute and 40-second mark. Kennedy advanced to face Tanquinho Mendes in the final, someone his father had competed against multiple times across his career. There was a generational thread running through this division. The 66 kg division finally provided the answer everyone was looking for. Experience prevailed. Augusto Tanquinho Mendes had been competing at the highest levels of the sport since the early 2000s. He had won almost everything the sport had to offer. At 36 years old, he finally added the one title that had always been missing from that list, the Abu Dhabi gold medal. The passing of the torch moment would happen in the 66 kg division, but not on that day. This left Paulo Miao versus Tairu Tolo for the bronze medal, and this match became something the crowd will talk about for years. Paulo received 2 negative points for pulling guard in the points period, which was a huge tactical error on his part. Luckily for him, he managed to secure 2 points for a sweep. However, the 2 negative points meant that Paulo effectively had 0 points, so tied going into the last 30 seconds, Tairu Tolo locked in a knee bar. It was deep and it was absolutely disgusting. The crowd was shocked. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Paulo's knee was getting bent in half, but he gritted through it, survived the clock, and dragged himself into overtime, where he managed to sweep the teenager and eventually win on points. Paulo couldn't even walk right on that leg, and his knee would carry the consequences of that bronze medal victory for a very long time. Tairu Tolo finished 4th at the ADCC World Championship at 16 years old. In the 77 kg semifinals, Gary Tonin faced JT Torres, a match the fans wanted to see since the brackets were first released. Gary's unrelenting non-stop attacks versus the champion's defense and tactical winning jiu-jitsu. It was a very tightly contested match, but after a takedown attempt from JT, Gary attempted a counter but ended up getting taken down cleanly. With 10 seconds in the match, Gary jumped for a knee bar and caught it fully locked under his armpit, a much stronger variation of the standard knee bar. However, time expired before Gary could really try to create a second Paulo Miao moment. In a moment of frustration, sensing that the victory was just seconds away, Gary Tonin slapped the mat but still showed respect to his opponent. Torres won 2-0. And on the other side of the bracket, the veteran Wagner Hosha defeated the young gun Dante Leon via a ref decision to find himself in the final against JT Torres. For the 77 kg bronze match, Gary Tonin faced Dante Leon and submitted him with an outside heel hook, one of the more favored moves by the Danaher Death Squad. Bronze medal at his 4th ADCC after 2 years of focusing mostly on MMA. JT Torres won the 77 kg final against Wagner Hosha. Wagner attempted a Kimura early on and JT used it to take his back, controlling the match and finding the rear naked choke finish. The 2-time 77 kg ADCC champion, back to back, not a single point conceded to any opponent across the entire tournament. JT Torres played the perfect competition game, managing to beat the human tornado that is Gary Tonin and the rough veteran Wagner Hosha. JT did not celebrate in the way the crowd expected. He reacted just the way he competes, with emotional control and calmness, though he did remind the crowd that he was now a 2-time ADCC World Champion in historically the toughest division. In the 88 kg division, Craig found himself facing Mateus Diniz, as fans generally expected. Craig had a ton of momentum behind him. It really seemed like victory was already secured. He made his way to the finals with 3 straight submissions. In typical Craig Jones fashion, he was very aggressive with his guard attacks right from the opening. Mateus managed to fend him off and weather the initial barrage of attacks, taking the match into overtime, where Craig would be more tired and would need to be more cautious about takedowns. Craig shot for a takedown and Mateus countered it beautifully to gain 2 points. Mateus, now having a 2-point lead over the number 1 seed, started playing more defensively, leading to him receiving a negative point. Craig, after having his leg picked up by Mateus for a single leg, looked to counter it and jump for a Kani Basami, a scissor leg takedown, and received a negative point for it due to it basically being a guard pull since his takedown failed. Mateus picked up a second negative point for passivity. If Craig had not jumped the Kani Basami, the score would have been 0, 2 points, and 2 negative points, cancelling each other out, and they would have gone to a second overtime. An unfortunate tactical error that led to Craig receiving a silver ADCC medal. The number 1 seed, who came in as the favorite, could not get it done that night against Mateus Diniz. Josh Hinger won the 88 kg bronze medal. In the -99 kg division, Gordon Ryan's path to the final was as dominant as his day 1 performance. He beat Lucas Hulk Barbosa in the semi-final, although it was not as easy of a match for him. Barbosa's wrestling gave him real problems, but Gordon shut Hulk down and took the back late to score and win on points. On the other side of the bracket, Vinicius Gazola beat Vinny Magalhaes in the semi-final because of a late takedown with 15 seconds remaining. Shame, since Vinny is one of the very few men who have ever beaten Gordon Ryan, which would have made for a fascinating final. Vinny then pulled out injured before the bronze match, handing Lucas Hulk Barbosa 3rd place by default. Gordon would face Vinicius Gazola in the final. Gordon Ryan found the rear naked choke victory. He was now a 2-time ADCC champion in consecutive years, and more impressively, in 2 different weight divisions. But Gordon's night was far from over. For him, this was only half the event. The other half was the absolute. The semifinals of the plus 99 kilogram division shook up the entire bracket and shattered all expectations when Kaynan Duarte defeated the two-time ADCC champion and last year's gold medalist Marcus Buchecha Almeida in a huge upset. However, the other side of the bracket held an even bigger upset. Although Kaynan's win over Buchecha was an upset, Kaynan was still an experienced black belt, but Nicky Rodriguez wasn't. He was a blue belt and beat Roberto Cyborg Abreu by ref's decision in one of the most unexpected results of the entire weekend. Cyborg refused to compete for bronze, leaving Buchecha to take third by default. Their controversial match is covered in full in my previous documentary. The final of the 2019 ADCC plus 99 kilogram division would be Nicky Rod versus Kaynan Duarte. This match was also covered in the Nicky Rod documentary in detail. Kaynan battled Nicky Rod using tactical jiu-jitsu and not allowing Nicky Rod to shine in his stand-up game. Kaynan Duarte won 3-0. He was 21 years old and had just completed what was quite possibly the greatest debut year a black belt had ever had in the history of the sport. In the women's minus 60 kilogram semifinal, Ffion Davies faced Beatriz Mesquita. It had been 2 years since Mesquita submitted Ffion in the previous ADCC. The match was close and physical, but Ffion locked in an armbar and wrenched it until Mesquita's arm bent back nearly 90 degrees. It was absolutely terrifying to watch. Mesquita tapped and the crowd went wild. Bia Mesquita, the reigning champion, had been submitted with a vicious armbar. Ffion got her revenge and stamped her ticket to the final, where she met Bianca Basilio. Bianca chose to sit to guard and take a negative point, but managed to force a 50-50 leg lock position, where the two athletes can attack each other's legs. Ffion started to attack a heel hook, and although she was protecting her legs from the counter heel hook, Bianca found a vicious toe hold and Ffion had no choice but to tap. The submission did a lot of damage as Ffion needed medical help and had to be helped off the mat. Bianca Basilio was the 2019 minus 60 kilogram ADCC champion. Although Ffion Davies lost in the final, this put her name on the map and let the grappling world know just who she was. The over 60 kilogram division did not play out completely as expected either. Gabi Garcia won her match and got to the final, but there, she did not meet Tayane Porfirio. Rather, she would have to face Karina Santi, who upset Porfirio earlier in the day. Gabi Garcia won her 4th ADCC title, finishing Karina Santi with a Kimura from top position, the only woman in history to win 4 ADCC titles, and signing her name in the history books as possibly the greatest female athlete of all time. All the divisions were set, but the night was far from over. What followed next was just as exciting, if not more so. Next up was the openweight division, and this absolute made the story of the entire event. The story of the Absolute division was written by one man, Lachlan Giles. I have a full documentary on his life and covered his ADCC run already, so I wanted to tackle this story from the other side, the perspective of his opponents. If you want to see it through Lachlan's eyes, the link is on screen. Kaynan Duarte had just proved that he was the best heavyweight that night. He took this momentum into the Absolute division, gunning for double gold. So he was quite happy to see that his first opponent was not only a 77 kilo competitor, but someone who had lost in the very first round. Lachlan's game was leg locks. And at first, Kaynan did well to stay away from the legs and counter Lachlan's entries. But after some time, he got complacent, and Lachlan managed to enter the legs. Kaynan felt safe since there was no proper leg position established. However, what he didn't expect was for Lachlan to grab his heel before the legs were even set, start cranking the heel hook, and after, anchor himself to the giant's leg. By the time Kaynan realized what was happening, it was already too late, and he was forced to tap. The crowd, the corner, the announcers, almost everyone in the building lost their minds. This was unbelievable. The heavyweight champion was defeated by a smaller man. In the absolute division, Gary Tonin hit the fastest submission in the whole tournament when he hit a textbook Kani Basami to inside heel hook on Edwin Najmi. It took 15 seconds for the human highlight reel to tap Edwin and progress in the bracket. Gordon Ryan submitted Pedro Marinho in just 3 minutes, and his next opponent would be Gary. These two were far from just teammates. Gary had been teaching Gordon since he started training, introduced him to Danaher, drove him to the Renzo Gracie Academy in New York from New Jersey. Every day, Gary Tonin helped build Gordon Ryan, and now they were forced to face each other on the mat. Gordon quickly took Gary's back and submitted him with a rear naked choke. After the match, Gordon showed all the respect in the world to the man who helped him get to the top of the sport, raising his arm and embracing his teammate. Buchecha, Muhammad Ali, and Patrick Gaudio all won their opening absolute matches and progressed further. Gaudio faced Lachlan Giles and made the fatal mistake of jumping into a leg lock against the man who had just submitted the heavyweight champion, so Lachlan finished him quickly. Buchecha defeated Muhammad Ali by submission to set up the absolute final against the winner of Gordon Ryan and Lachlan Giles. Two incredible athletes, both riding insane momentums. Lachlan seemed like a wizard. His leg locks seemed to level the playing field against any larger opponent, but Gordon was a machine at the 2019 ADCC. Although Lachlan hit a slick entry into the legs, Gordon is a master of leg locks in his own right and quickly shut down any attack from the lightweight. Once he escaped the position, he passed Lachlan's guard, took his back, and choked him. The absolute finals were set: Gordon Ryan versus Marcus Buchecha Almeida. To decide the third place winner, Muhammad Ali faced off with Lachlan Giles. Unfortunately for Ali, he could not stop the lightweight from locking a sharp inside heel hook on him, and he was forced to tap. Lachlan Giles cemented his name in the history and became an overnight sensation, losing only to Gordon in the absolute. The absolute final would be the clash of generations: Gordon Ryan versus Marcus Buchecha Almeida. Buchecha was larger, super explosive, and unpredictable. Someone who had been at the top of the heavyweight division for nearly a decade. The crowd was split. Half of them rooted for Gordon, the other half for Buchecha. Gordon used the systems that made him the king of the sport, most famously hitting the notorious shoulder crunch sweep directly to mount. Though Buchecha escaped quickly and it led to no points being scored, Buchecha kept trying to pass, but found no way to do so. Gordon's guard was just too good, and his attacks were too threatening to be able to fully commit to a pass or an attack. In overtime, Buchecha jumped for Gordon's heel in a moment of desperation or calculated risk, depending on how you look at it. Gordon turned to his corner, John Danaher, and laughed out loud. Buchecha saw it and laughed back. In a very tense moment in the finals, the whole crowd found relief and managed to get a good laugh. Buchecha was hit with a negative point for passivity, and Gordon Ryan won. A lot of people booed and he flipped off the crowd, but he embraced Buchecha and lifted his arm. The same respect and acknowledgement that he had given to Lachlan and Gary earlier. Gordon Ryan had won 2 golds that weekend, minus 99 kilogram division and the absolute division, something he couldn't accomplish 2 years prior. The 2019 ADCC began establishing Gordon as one of the top grapplers of all time and catapulted him to stardom that transcended the sport itself. Now that the division and the absolutes were done, it was time for one more spectacle: the Superfight. This video is sponsored by X Martial. They make high quality martial arts clothing with some genuinely unique designs. The kind of stuff that gets you comments in the training room. If that's not your style, they have cleaner, more toned down options too. Something for everyone. Use code ChrisXBJJ at checkout for a 50% discount off everything in store, and find them at xmartial.com or the top link in the description. Andre Galvao had been competing at ADCC since 2007, 6 titles across 12 years, weight divisions, absolutes, and super fights. The most decorated competitor in the history of the tournament, he had won the super fight 3 consecutive times. He was 37 years old, still in peak physical condition. and it was his birthday. His opponent, Felipe Pena, earned the right to challenge Galvao for the Superfight title after beating Gordon Ryan in the 2017 Absolute Finals match. Pena was a top heavyweight and a challenge to anyone in that division. He also had 4 matches with Galvao previously. This would be their deciding match. As competitors, they did not think highly of the other. For the Superfight and the division finals, the production shifted into a gear that the event had never seen before. Real professional walkouts with lighting and drummers to build up the atmosphere. An announcer treating the introductions just how you'd see in any other combat sport. The crowd was hyped. That was just what Jassim had said he wanted, and for these final matches, for the first time, it was actually happening. Grapplers were beginning to look like professional athletes and were giving the atmosphere and stage they deserved. The match was 20 minutes with a 10-minute overtime period. Pena brought legitimate leg entries and attacks early on, well planned and threatening, but Galvao's passing pressure was the answer. Continuous forward motion, using 12 years of experience to drag the match into territory that suited his style and conditioning. At one point they went out of bounds together, landing hard on the commentary table. Pena hit it badly enough that the mark was visible on his ribs when they restarted, and something shifted in the match after that. Galvao hit a blast double in overtime for 2 points and won 4 consecutive Superfight titles. His corner and the entire Atos team were already on the mat before the referee even finished raising his arm. His students singing happy birthday all around him. 37 years old, 4 times Superfight champion, 6 titles in total on his birthday. His next opponent would be Gordon Ryan in the 2022 ADCC Superfight. The fans needed time to fully comprehend the weight of this ADCC, but eventually everyone felt it. This one was different. It felt bigger than what we had seen before. Gordon Ryan submitted 6 out of his 8 opponents across both divisions and won the 99 kg title and the Absolute. He was 24 years old and dominating. He had now competed in 2 ADCCs, collected 3 gold medals and 1 silver. Nobody in either bracket had even come close to threatening him. The sport genuinely didn't know how to fully deal with what Gordon was, a brash young American who talked the talk and walked the walk. He was just as good as he claimed he was, and he was beginning to transcend the sport. The weekend produced results that nobody could guess beforehand. Kainan Duarte gave up weight to his opponents in the plus 99 kg division and still won gold at 21 years old. Lachlan Giles walked into the Absolute as a 77 kg physiotherapist and submitted 3 heavyweights with the same submission. Before the Sunday was over, his performance entered the conversation about the greatest moments in ADCC history. The veterans held their ground. Galvao won his 6th title. JT Torres went back-to-back in the hardest division in the sport without conceding a single point. And Tanquinho finally got the one title that had always eluded him. But the young generation announced itself. Tairu Tolo finished 4th at 16 years old. Kennedy Maciel reached the final wearing his father's name. Dante Leon upset a legend, and Gary Tonin came back from MMA and took bronze. The DDS dominated across multiple divisions as a unified team. Craig Jones lost the 88 kilo final on a tactical error and would carry that result into the next chapter of his career. Nicky Rodriguez was just a blue belt and beat established champions. The production upgrade in Anaheim planted something that would grow into the Thomas & Mack Center in Las Vegas 3 years later. 13,000 people, the largest crowd in the history of ADCC. Where the Anaheim Convention Center seemed like the peak to some, it actually proved to be just the beginning, which is exactly what it was. This was the first time that ADCC, as an event, saw its real potential. It felt like the start of a new era of grappling. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the various stories from the 2019 ADCC and their impact on the BJJ world. Please let me know what you think about this style of video. I'll be looking to make a part 2 about ADCC 2022, probably after the next documentary, just so we have some variety. Unless you guys really enjoy this and want it right away. If you do, make sure to be vocal and let me know in the comments. If we get enough comments, I'll do it right away, and if not, it'll wait a bit. Before I let you all go, I have a question. What was the most interesting story in the 2019 ADCC? Write it down below. I would like to issue a personal heartfelt thank you to Stuart Cooper, the black belt filmmaker. He is the main reason why I was able to show you some moments from 2019. Without him, this video would have been a glorified PowerPoint presentation. Please check out his channel if you haven't already. His content is amazing and his highlight videos are pure hype. Thank you to my Patreons and my sponsors who helped me tell these incredible stories from the grappling world. Also, thanks to all of you who used my code ChrisXBJJ when buying gear from X Marshall. I hope you enjoyed your discount and the super high quality gear. It helps the channel out a ton and gives you plus 15 swag points. And finally, a small health update for me. I will be getting a deviated septum surgery next week, so whilst I'm recovering, I'll be working hard at making videos since I won't be able to train anyway. So the next video might come out sooner than you expected. Keep an eye out. Goodbye!